Hi everyone, and welcome to the Red Brick House. My name is Susan, and here on this channel I love to share different crafts and things that I like to make with you. And so today, with the holiday season right around the corner, I am making a new table runner for my dining room table. Surprise, surprise, I know. If you've been following my videos, you know I love table runners. And I pretty much make a new one for every season. And so then, you know, I just have choices to choose from when I'm decorating. And so today I'm excited about this project because I've never made a quilt block like this before, and I've never thought I really could make one because I've mentioned before in some of my videos that I'm just not a very good quilter or cutter or something. I have a really hard time cutting out, especially triangles, quilts that involve triangles. I just have a really hard time trying to piece those together and make them look nice like they're supposed to. And so I'm going to try making a log cabin table runner. And so I finished this block here. Now, I am making this for my Christmas decor, even though these are not Christmas colors traditionally. So in the past, I've used a lot of traditional red and green, you know, Christmas colors in my home. But this year, well, actually last year, I purchased some like mauve pink and blush pink kind of ornaments for my tree. And so I really kind of changed up the way I decorated my tree last year, and I really loved it, and I want to continue that this year. And so that's why I'm making this log cabin table runner in these colors. So I just have different shades of pink and kind of a maroon burgundy to a wine color for my quilt block here. And so I'm going to share with you how I did this. I sewed this all by hand, and it is not going to be precise. I'm just going to let you know that right now. I tried to make them as precise as possible, but I'm going to show you how I did this. So if you are not into fussy, precise measurements and cutting a ton of things out ahead of time before you make a quilt block, this way of doing it is for you. This is more of a quilt as you go, stitch as you go, and on mine personally, I have visible stitching because I don't mind visible stitching on my quilts, and so that doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me if these are all the same size. That doesn't bother me. And so I'm going to tell you how I made this in case you are like me and you're just not into, you know, precise fussy measurements and precise cutting and things like that. So join me at my table and I'll show you how I did this. Okay, so first I'm going to show you a little bit up close of how it looks. So here's the dark corner over here. And then I'll go over here to the light area. Now you'll notice that some of my strips, I have the like a ragged edge, a roughed up edge here, visible, and here, and here. And I'll show you how I did that. Now, when I say no fuss, I do mean like no fuss. Like I don't mind that you can see my visible stitching. And so, you know, I'm not going to bother with that, about that. Right here, I made a mistake and I didn't get a good enough seam allowance, and this was kind of showing under here. So I just stitched across there so that this wouldn't be coming undone. And I'm okay with that. Now, you know, you can make this as, you know, nice as you want it to be. You might want all of your edges folded over like this, and that's perfectly fine. Or you might want all of them like this and you can see the visible stitching. I have seen people put these pieces on here and just stitch it at the back, but then it kind of flops up sometimes, and if you get too many of those in a row, I don't know if I like how that looks. So what I did is I just stitched it across the the top there, just like you would with these. So let me show you how I got started and how I did this. And so first I'm taking my backing, or like some people call it a foundation piece. This is my back of my quilt, and it's this really, really cute gingerbread house, like sugar sprinkled, or snow. To me, I always think of sugar since there's cookies and gingerbread houses, but you see snowflakes in here. I know this is black. It doesn't really, and this is red. It doesn't really match my colors over here perfectly, but I thought that maybe it would be reversible, where I could turn it over like this and display it as a table runner, you know, if I wanted to. And so I think that's just kind of an added bonus. So that's what my backing looks like. So that's what I have here. It's just the same fabric. They're all gonna look like that on the back. One thing I didn't think about, and I probably should have, is because I want, when I do my table runner, I want these blocks to all face the same direction. So it's probably a good idea if I make sure that these are turned the right way. So let me look and see if I did that, because I'm just now realizing that. And they are. Okay, I've made 2 of these so far. So this was the first one that I made. And my houses are right side up. The dark is on the left-hand corner over here. And this one is the same way. Dark is on the left-hand corner, and it's right side up. So I have to make sure, well, I want to make sure that these are all facing the same direction. That is important to me. That's probably the one thing I'm going to be kind of fussy about, because my blocks are going to go, let me bring it out a bit. My blocks are going to go like this. And then there's going to be a border, or like a strip in between here of a different fabric. And it is also black. I'm hoping it will kind of bring this all together. So that's my plan. Hopefully it all works out. And it all works out to how I want it to look in the end. So, okay, so I'm going to start with this. That means I'm going to be making all of my blocks in the same way, as far as I'm going to start with the dark color first when I start stitching. Okay, so I have my foundation piece and I have my little square. Now I made the same color square for all 4 of these blocks. And I want that to be in the middle. I'm not gonna do fussy measurements or anything, but I am going to fold this over. I'm gonna finger press it down. If it's not exactly perfect, it's okay. It's okay with me. I am okay with that. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side, just to get a middle point. This reminds me of origami. If you've ever folded paper and done some origami projects, that's what this kind of reminds me of. Okay, so now I'm going to find my midpoint, which is right here. I'm going to find the midpoint of my little square, and I'm going to put that right there. And I'm going to just kind of look at it. And if I think it needs to come up a little bit, I'll bring it up a little bit. If I think it needs to move over, then I move it over. But that looks pretty good to me, I think. Okay, now I'm going to start with my stitching. I'm going to start with my dark fabrics. And I just forgot that I didn't show you like my actual fabrics. So let me show you my dark fabrics here. I meant to do that before I started talking about the block. So you've already seen the backing. That's for the back. I could not find anything at the store that matched my colors that was Christmassy in any kind of way. I did want something kind of Christmassy on the back, but it didn't happen, so that's okay. Okay, so first I have this fabric. I think I only bought a half a yard. I did not buy a lot, but I think it's so pretty. It has little flowers on it, little mushrooms, some little berries, but I really liked this dark purpley kind of wine color background. It has acorns on it. It looks very fall. It probably is meant for fall, but I'm gonna use it anyway because I liked that background color. I also looked for smaller prints. I didn't really find a lot of smaller prints. Then I have another one that is a nice floral print. I thought it was beautiful too. It's kind of similar. It's very similar in the background color, only this is more pink, where the other one's a little bit darker. This is not as dark as the one I just showed you. It's a little bit of has more pink in it than purple. And so I thought this was just beautiful. Little pattern. And then after that, I got most of these at Hobby Lobby. These solid prints I got at Walmart. I will show you. Yep, these solid ones I got at Walmart. So it's just a solid, like burgundy, kind of cranberry. I would call it cranberry. That's kind of the color it is. It looks kind of red on the camera, but it is more like a cranberry color. And then for my light colors, I also got at Walmart. It's just kind of like a mauve pink or a dusty rose kind of color, which when it comes to pinks, that's what I love. And then the other one I got at Walmart was a little fat quarter that was like this. Now this is kind of a beigey pink. So it's not really like brown, but it's not as pink as this, but I think it goes really, really well. And so I bought that one. Then these last two light colored ones I got at Hobby Lobby. So this is just like an outline of a rose, but it's kind of a coppery, metallic finish. And I thought it was really pretty. So it's just like a cream color with this metallic outline of roses, which I thought it was really pretty. They didn't have a lot as far as the colors that I was looking for. And then this is just a cute little pale pink. Also again, kind of that salmon, mauve-y, dusty rose kind of color pink. This just has little flowers on it. I love that. Okay, so that's really all I have to go with this. So I don't have a lot of fabrics to pull from, but it's working, I think. Okay, so I'm gonna start with my dark colors. I'm going to zoom you back in so you can see better what I'm doing here. Okay, and now to stitch this, I'm using this pink embroidery thread. This is kind of my cheapy econo thread that you get in like a bag of different embroidery threads. I had bought it for my daughter a long time ago when she was making little felt animals and things like that, and she was learning to stitch. And so I'm gonna use them. I mean, why not use them? So that's what I'm using in this project. I'm only using one strand though. So I'm making it it's really a really thin strand right here. And I'm just using an embroidery needle. I believe this is like a sharp needle. And I'm going to pin this little square down here so that it doesn't move while I'm trying to put the other things on. So I'm going to pin that in place, and then I'm just going to go right into my dark fabrics. And so I have a little piece here. It's got a nice little fluffy edge on it, or frayed edge, if you will. So it's really cute. I think I am going to use that, so I'm just going to lay it on top of here. I'm going to overlap it by about 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to pin that in place. I think I need some new pins. I would like to get some applique pins, but these are working for me at the moment. But I've noticed they're a little bit, some of them are a little dull. So I could probably use just some new pins in general. Okay, now I'm just going to sew right across this edge here, because like I said, I want that fluffy edge. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna come up in between those fabrics. And I'm trying to do very little stitches and not very big stitches. Okay, let me get that stitched all the way across, and then I'll bring it up a little closer because my hand might be in the way. I apologize if it is, but all I'm doing is stitching across here. Now I forgot to trim off my edge, which you can do that before or after you stitch it. Typically I do it before I start stitching, but I kind of forgot to trim off my edge. So I'll trim that little piece off. Now I have it stitched down. And now I'm going to work my way, because what you're going to do is you're going to turn it and then you're going to put on the next strip of fabric. And I don't want my needle to be in the middle here. I want my thread coming out over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work my way to the end. Now because this piece here is my backing, I don't want to stitch into that. All I'm doing is getting my needle where I want it. So I'm only going to stitch into this fabric here. So I don't know if you can see that, but see, I'm not stitching in here to I'm not tacking this down to this. I just want, because the point of this is just to get my needle to the other side. So I'm just walking my needle over till I get to that other end. And now, see, now I'm to that other end. I haven't made any stitch marks in my fabric back here. And so now I'm ready to put my next piece of fabric on here. Okay. And so now I'll probably do my other piece. I'll probably do this, like I called it the fall piece here. Okay, now this one I am going to fold over. So I'm going to put right sides together so I can show you how, if you want a nicer, not frayed edge. I won't say nicer because, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So I won't call it like this is the nicer way. But if you want I don't know what to call it, like a clean edge where it's not frayed, then you would put right sides together. So I'm just going to lay that right across there. I'm going to line it up with this edge, and then I'm going to pin it down. And I'm going to go ahead and take this pin out and use it. And I don't want my pin to be in the way, so I'm not going to pin it way at the top, because then it's going to get in the way of my stitching. Okay, and then now I'm going to cut off this extra bit. I'm going to line this fabric up with the fabric I started with. So I can see it sticking out right there. And so I'm just going to cut straight up. I just line my scissors up with it and cut straight up. It's okay if it overlaps a little bit. I'll address that when we add more fabric. But now, since we have our needle over here, we're just going to come up about 1/4 inch seam. And I'm going to stitch across here now. Doing the same way, trying to make really small stitches and not big basting stitches. And it always gets stuck. That's why I said I need applique pins, because my thread always likes to loop around my pin. Okay, There we go. Then I'm just going to keep going across here till I get to the other side. And that's really all there is to it. I've been so intimidated by making a quilt block by hand for so long, and you know, I'm just not going to do it anymore. I'm not going to be afraid to do things like that. I'm just going to do it, and we'll see how it turns out. You know, I have to have that attitude or I would never try anything, you know. And I spent too much of my life being afraid to do stuff that it wouldn't turn out well, or that I wouldn't do it well enough. But you know, I'm to that point in my life where, you know, I'm past that point. I'm just going to try it and see if it works. And I wish I would have made a decision to have that attitude a long time ago. Okay, anyway, so now, just to hold this down, it's not going anywhere, but I'm just going to hold it down because I want it to lay flat so that I know, like, it won't get in the way or anything. But now, like I said again, I'm going to need to get back over here in order to put on my new fabric. So I'm just turning it so I can work and get my needle back to the edge. And all I'm going to do is go in this top fabric and get to the end here. And don't over pull it too tight too. Okay. So now, it's a lot of turning around, I know. But now we're on to the lights. So I did dark, dark. Now we're going to do light, light. So dark, dark, light, light. Okay, so let me find a light piece of fabric that I can use. I think I'll do the roses. Let's see if this is long enough. It looks like it's just about long enough. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. I'm going to do right sides together. So I'm going to lay that right across here. Now, if you look closely, you can see that this fabric is a little bit, because of how I cut it, it's a little bit taller. It's a little bit longer than this is. And so if I line this new fabric, if I line it up here, I'm going to be just stitching right on the edge, and I might miss this edge of this fabric. So if it overlaps a little bit like that one did, like when you're cutting it, just make sure that you line up your next fabric with the shorter piece. Because see, if I line it up like that, then you can see how this fabric was a little, it overlaps a little bit. It's a little bit too long. But you want to line it up with the shorter piece of fabric. And you want to make sure that you're not lining it up like that, because then you're going to go crooked, you see. Now, I'm not being too fussy about this, but I don't want to go crooked if I can help it. So I'm going to line it up with this piece here, and it's going to go straight across. It won't matter. Nobody will see this extra piece right there, so it doesn't matter. But I just wanted to point that out, because that can make a difference in your finished piece. So now I'm just going to pin that piece down so it stays in place. I'm going to get my needle. I'm going to come up where I want to make the seam allowance. So I'm going to come up right there. And then I'm just going to stitch across like I've been doing. It's that simple, y'all. I'll do one more light, so I'll make one more full go around. And then I'll probably finish the rest off camera. And if I find anything that I think is worth pointing out or mentioning that would be helpful, then I will stop what I'm doing and I will film that and talk about it. But this is just how I've been doing it. And I think for my first time project, it turned out fine. Now, at some point, sometimes my work does go a little bit crooked. And so I just try to be mindful about my next piece that I lay down and trying to keep it straight. And then I found that at the end, it all worked out. Like it all came out in the wash, you know, like it all just kind of, nothing was terribly, terribly off about it. And I think that's how it is. If you're just careful, like you don't have to be, well, I mean, you can be precise as you want to be. If it bothers you to have things not all the same, you know, exact same size and everything, that is totally fine. You can do your crafts however you want. You can be precise as you want. But for me, I'm not going to be worried about it. Because it's more enjoyable for me that way if I don't, like, not concerned about it being perfect. Okay. So, and also I don't pay too much attention to how this looks in the middle, because as you add fabric, let me back out a little bit. I think it's the wrong way. As you add fabric, because you can see like how it feels like I'm not in the middle anymore, and maybe it feels like you're doing more on this side. As you add the fabric, that will kind of shift and move. So if this is the first time you've done this, don't worry about that. Like, don't even pay attention to the edges, I say, until you get to the edges. And I will come back and talk about the edges when I get there. So next, I'm trying to find some fabric that's long enough. Okay. So I have some strips here. Now, when I first cut these fabrics, well, I didn't cut them. That is the problem. When I first did these, I wasn't sure. I really wanted all of them to have frayed edges, but I wasn't really sure how to sew that together because I haven't seen anybody do that here on YouTube. I mean, somebody probably has done it and I just haven't seen it. But I wanted to make a log cabin out of I wanted all of these to be frayed and the frayed edge to show. But when I started trying to put it together, I didn't really know where to stitch it or how to stitch it. And so now that I've learned, I can just stitch right across there. I think I'll do another fluffy edge on this one. So anytime I want to do a fluffy edge, I just put it up here. So instead of flipping it over and putting it here, I'm just going to keep it right side up facing me. And I'm just going to lay it, overlap it about 1/4 inch and just lay it right there and then pin it down. And then I'm going to stitch at the bottom. And so I think if I was going to do all frayed edges, I would do it, that's how I would do it. It's pretty much the same process. So that might be in my future. I may make something else in the future that does have all frayed edges. But what I was talking about is that when I cut out my strips, I tore them all. So I don't think I showed them to you. Here, let me just show you. Almost looks like a jelly roll. But these are strips of fabric that I took the liberty of tearing so I would have nice frayed edges. And then when I started making it, I was like, oh, I don't know how to make all frayed edges like that. And so once I figured it out, then my first block already had these nice neat edges and some frayed edges because I was kind of playing around with it and trying to figure it out. And then so I was like, well, I want all my blocks to somewhat be the same since, you know, this is, I don't know, they're going to line up all the same. So I was like, I'll just keep them all the same way instead of, you know, changing it now and changing it to all frayed edges. I think it still would have been fine because it was all the same fabric, but I don't know. I guess that was the one thing I chose to be precise about in this project. But anyway, so I hope all that makes sense. I hope I'm explaining this in a way that people can understand me. I try really hard to explain things in an easy way. I used to teach preschoolers, and so I think I got really used to explaining things as, you know, as easily as possible. which takes some getting used to, because I'm the kind of person that sometimes I make things harder than what they need to be. And so I hope that my instructions here are not like that, and that they're easy to understand. So let me know if you are planning to make one of these, or if you have made one of these by hand. I would be interested to know that, and to you know, have your thoughts on how yours turned out, or how you sewed it together. Did you have any frayed edges? Oops, I forgot to cut that. Need to cut that off. Did you run into any problems? I would like to hear all those things. Okay, so here I am to my end again. I still need to get to the end of this over here. So whether you're doing a frayed edge or not a frayed edge, it still helps to walk your needle down, unless you want to tie off. You could tie off every single time, but I don't like doing that. It probably would save me a little bit of thread, but okay. So let me show you this up close. I'm gonna leave those pins there. So that's my first little block there. So I have my piece in the middle, dark, dark, light, light. So next I will turn it, and then I'll go back to dark, dark, light, light, and you'll just keep going around until you get to the end, to the edge. And that's what I'm going to do. So I think I'll do that off camera, and I'll come back when I get to the edge and how I'm doing my edges. Okay, so I've done a little bit more work now, and I wanted to address something. So if you look at my block, it looks pretty good. It looks pretty straight. But if you look at this area from here and here, it looks like it's crooked, like it's higher on this edge than it is here. I don't know if you can see that, how well you can see that on the camera. And so I'm not going to panic about that. What I'm going to do is, when I line up my next strip of fabric, I am going to try, let me bring you in closer. I'm going to try to keep this fabric straighter, okay? So, and what's been helping me do that is that if you have a board like this, it really helps to line your top fabric up here with like one of these lines. And so then you know it's straight. And that has kind of helped me to kind of, because I can see how these two are way off. Like maybe this is maybe 1.5 inches, this is maybe 2 inches. You know, it's kind of off. But what I'm going to do is, this time, before I was like, don't line it up crooked. I'm going to line it up crooked on purpose. So I'm going to line it up with this, actually no, I'm going to line it up with this edge, the shorter edge, like I said before. And I'm going to maybe try to keep it as straight as I can, and maybe pin it down about like that, and I'm going to sew that on like so. Now it might still be off a little bit, but it won't be off nearly as bad as what it was before. So I'm going to sew that down, and then we'll take a look at it. First I'm going to trim it over here. My pin's in the way. Let's see. I think that happened because I think I trimmed these a little, these edges right here. I think I trimmed some of these edges a little crooked, and then when I went and lined up my next fabric, I lined it up crooked. I think that's how that happened. But I'm going to remedy that at least pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch that on, and then, oh, actually, I didn't line it up over here. Ooh, I need to pay attention to what I'm doing. I'm talking and I'm not paying attention. Okay, that should be there. And that should be there. Okay, I got it now. I got it this time. Take 2. Okay, so here we go. Now I'm just going to stitch it on like I was doing before. This is nothing different. I'm doing it at 1/4 of an inch. This one I am stitching on right sides together. And if it's still a little bit off, I think it'll be okay. This has happened in some, well, actually it happened on both of my other blocks. So I think that's why I'm not gonna like really worry about it too much. Because in the end, when I look at the whole block as a picture, it doesn't look crooked to me. So now, if they are crooked on the edges, then it might show up when I go to put the border in between them. That might happen. But I'm not there yet, so I'm not going to worry about it. If it does, I'll just put it together the best that I can. Because this is fun. I like piecing this together by hand. It's just, to me, it's so much more enjoyable than cutting out a million little pieces of fabric at a time. And, you know, measuring them, make sure you cut everything straight, that kind of thing. It's just not my favorite thing to do, but I really enjoy this. Okay, I didn't trim that off because I had messed it up before. Okay, so now we're gonna see what that looks like. So let me take that pin out. And now, see, I think it looks better. I think it looks better. This is a little bit straighter. Now, another thing that I've been doing also is that sometimes to make it look straighter, I'll kind of push this seam to the edge. And then if it's not straight there, I'll just kind of re-seam that right there. You could press that down with an iron and almost make it work. You know what I mean? Like, there's a little tiny like edge here. If you look closely, let me bring it in closer. So, I mean, there's a kind of a little edge there, whereas over here, I'm pushing it as far up as I can without the stitches being exposed. And that helps to, and if you can pin it down like that, kind of press it and then pin it down, now your edge is almost completely straight again. So that's what I've kind of been doing, just to, you know, troubleshoot that kind of thing if it happens to you. And it might, especially when you're not, you know, that's what happens when you're not being precise. But like I said, if it looks good in the end, I'm okay with that. Okay, so now I'm ready to do my lights. So I'll have a light here. I'm almost to the edge. And then when I get to the edge, I will show you how I'm finishing these off. Okay, now I'm here at the end. I have one more go around all the way around the block. So I'm going to do dark, dark, and then one more light, light, and I'll be finished. As you can see here, my fabric, I've already pinned it down, and it's gonna overlap the edge here, and that's okay. Just let it overlap. That's what I've been doing. And then what I have done is I have trimmed it off at the end. And so with that said, that's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to keep stitching and then fold it over, and you can see how it will just overflap over here. And then I'm going to continue to do the other ones. And then when I'm done with all that, then I'll show you how it looks at the end and how I trim it up. Okay, now I have this piece folded over. Right here, I'm, instead of lining it up on the edge, because this is off of my foundation piece here, I'm going to line this up with the edge of my backing or my foundation piece. I'm going to line it up with that one instead of going all the way over to the edge. And because this line was a little bit crooked, right here, I'm just going to line this fabric up and try to keep this fabric pretty straight. Just like that. Sometimes you have to put a pin in the middle as well. And that's what I'm going to do here as the strips get longer and longer. Oops. That's going to be in the way. There we go. Okay, trim off the edge. I'm still lining my scissors up here with this last fabric right here. Okay, pick up my needle. Oh, you know what? Okay, so because I'm not lining my fabric up here, when I walked my needle down by habit, I went to the edge of this fabric. But because I'm going to trim off this fabric, I don't want to cut my thread. So I'm actually going to undo this until I get back here to my foundation piece. So I'm going to take my needle out of my thread here. And I'm just going to bring it back. It would have helped if I didn't have a whole new, brand new strand of thread here. And my thread was a little bit shorter. Okay, so now I'm back where I'm like right at this edge of my foundation right here. So now I'm going to rethread my needle and then I'll come up into this fabric and sew across. Okay, there we are. Now to keep it from doing this and to keep it from flapping up, I am going to pin it down like that. So it just kind of stays down and out of my way until I can finish it there. And I'm going to do the same thing on this other side with the lights. Okay, here I am to my last little piece of fabric. I'm just going to tie this off and then I'm going to trim it up. I hope I'm doing the right thing by trimming them up and I don't regret it later, because I haven't made one of these before and I'm kind of doing this, you know, by the seat of my pants. So I don't know exactly. Maybe I should have left some of them on, but since that's what I've been doing, that's what I'm going to do today. So I'm going to back the camera back out so you can kind of see here, and I am going to pin this one down so that it kind of stays where I want it to be. If I had an iron handy close by, I would probably iron these. I didn't do that with any of the other ones. So I'm not going to do it here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it over to the back side. And I am going to just trim up these edges a little bit. They don't have to be perfect. They are going to be sewn onto a border piece, like I said. So they don't have to look perfect, because I'm going to sew the border directly onto the sides, and that's why I'm trimming them. I know I have seen other people leave an edge behind to help sew them together when you're like maybe you're putting 4 blocks together. If I was doing that, then I might leave an edge to just give me something to sew to. But I'm not doing that, so I think it'll be okay. Fingers crossed it comes out okay. And I'm going to make a separate video, like a part 2, of how I sew the border on and put these together. So we won't know until the next video if it worked or not. I'm sorry about that. Maybe if I get finished with that before this video goes up, I may put a note in the description or in the editing somewhere where I could say, hey, don't do what I did. But I'm sure, you know, there's always a problem. I mean, there's always a solution to the problem. So there we are. There's my next block. I think it looks really cute. Just like the other ones. It looks just like the other ones. So I'm going to get busy. I have one more to make. And then I'll be ready to put them together. And I'm going to put a little border in between them. I can tell that this is a little bit crooked over here. But you know what? That's just part of this, you know. I'm not going to worry about that. I think it's going to look adorable, even if it's a little bit crooked. So anyway, I hope that you've enjoyed this video. I hope that if you are like me and you have been intimidated in the past about making quilt blocks, I hope that this really, I hope it inspires you to try it, because, you know, that's all I'm doing here. I'm just trying it and hoping for the best. So, like I said, I'm going to get back to stitching. I'm going to make one more of these, and then I'm going to try to put them together in a cute little runner. So stay tuned for part 2. It'll be coming soon. Thank you so much for all of you who have liked and subscribed to my channel and have liked my videos. I just appreciate it so, so much. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.